Good morning. Our topic for today is about other relevant ethical principles. So we have other relevant ethical principles. First is principle of double effect, principle of legitimate cooperation, principle of common good and subsidiarity, principle of stewardship. Our desired learning outcomes will be as follows. Adhere to established norms of conduct based on legal, regulatory, and institutional requirements relevant to safe nursing practice and display communication skills with client and or support system based on trust, respect, and shared decision making using appropriate communication or interpersonal techniques or strategies. To start, let's first tackle about the principle of double effect. What is this principle all about? The doctrine or principle of double effect is often invoked to explain the permissibility of an action that causes a serious harm, such as the death of a human being, as a side effect of promoting some good end. According to the principle of double effect, sometimes it is permissible to cause a harm as a side effect of bringing about a good result, even though it would not be permissible to cause such a harm as a means to bringing about the same good end. A good act may have several good effects and is worthy of being performed, thereby increasing its goodness or even adding new goodness. An evil act may also have several evil effects and is unworthy of being chosen. An action that is good in itself, that has two effects, an intended and otherwise not reasonably attainable good effect, and an unintended yet foreseen evil effect, is licit, provided there is a due proportion between the intended good and the permitted evil. A good act may have several good effects that is worthy of being performed, thereby increasing its goodness or even adding new goodness. An evil act may also have several evil effects and is unworthy of being chosen. We have four conditions pertaining to this principle. The act must be good in itself, or at least morally indifferent. Being the primary moral determinant, the act by its very nature must be good. Its goodness proceeds from within itself. If it is not possible to do good, the act must not be evil in itself. At least, it is morally indifferent. The good effect must directly proceed from the act itself and not from the evil effect. At the very least, both effects must occur simultaneously. It indicates the fact that the good effect is the one that is being directly willed and not the evil effect of the performance of an act. The good effect is very purpose for which the act is done, and as such, it is produced not by the evil effect, but by the act itself. In fact, it comes ahead of the evil act. There must be sufficient reason for the performance of an act in its attainment of the good effect, as determined by the nature of the act and its circumstances. Sufficiency of reason exists when there is no other means by which the desired good effect is as equally important as to permit the occurrence of the evil effect. The motive of the agent must be holy and honest. How can the agent be honest in his intention? By directly willing to obtain the good effect and not evil effect of the act. This can be proven when the evil effect just follows after the good effect is achieved. The principle of double effect is often mentioned in discussions of what is known as palliative care, medical care for patients with terminal illness in need of pain relief. Three assumptions often operate in the background of these discussions. The side effect of hastening death is an inevitable or at least likely result of the administration of opioid drugs in order to relieve pain. The hastening of death is not an unwelcome side effect of providing pain relief in the context of palliative care. It would be impermissible to hasten death intentionally in order to cut short the suffering of a terminally ill patient. When these assumptions are made, double effect seems to provide at least part of a justification for administering drugs to relieve pain. So, we will now be giving examples. A doctor who intends to hasten the death of a terminally ill patient by injecting a large dose of morphine would act impermissibly because he intends to bring about the patient's death. However, a doctor who intended to relieve the patient's pain with the same dose and merely foresaw the hastening of the patient's death would act permissibly. Another one, a doctor who believed that abortion was wrong, even in order to save the mother's life, might nevertheless consistently believe that it would be permissible to perform a hysterectomy on a pregnant woman with cancer. In carrying out the hysterectomy, the doctor would aim to save the woman's life while merely foreseeing the death of the fetus. Performing an abortion, by contrast, would involve intending to kill the fetus as a means to saving the mother. Another example is sacrificing one's own life in order to save the lives of others can be distinguished from suicide by characterizing the agent's intention. A soldier who throws himself on a live grenade intends to shield others from its blast and merely foresees his own death. By contrast, a person who commits suicide intends to bring his or her own life to an end. The second principle is the principle of legitimate cooperation. This principle portrays the principle of double effect in a scenario in which more than one person participates in the action being evaluated. What are the different forms of cooperation? We have two, the formal and material. For formal, it is an agent identifies itself with purpose of evil act. It is immediate, directly does it, agree to the act, condole, do not worry about it, it's nothing, advising or counseling. Formal cooperation occurs when the evil end or evil means are directly chosen by means of encouragement, praise, advice, or other forms of support. For material cooperation, only the act itself but not the purpose. There is an objection and religious belief. Material cooperation occurs when the evil end and means are indirectly chosen by a person who has chosen a good end and good means. Formal cooperation is an evil act is never allowed. Immoral operations such as abortion shall not be participated by a nurse even if the doctor commands. The third principle is the principle of common good and subsidiarity. Common good is often defined as the common good as the sum total of social conditions which allows people, either as groups or as individuals, to reach their fulfillment more fully and easily. It's about the progress of persons. Often considered a corollary of the principle of common good, subsidiarity requires those in positions of authority to recognize that individuals have a right to participate in decisions that directly affect them in accord with their dignity and with their responsibility to common good. Decisions should be made at the most appropriate level in a society or organization. That is, one should not withdraw those decisions or choices that rightly belong to the individuals or smaller groups and assign them to a higher authority. The first bioethical principle that we will tackle is the principle of stewardship. The concept of health stewardship and responsibility for self marks a shift from adopting a paternalistic approach to care with decision making, the main remit of healthcare practitioners, towards encouraging and empowering individuals to take increasing responsibility for their healthcare and outcomes. The main aim of nursing is to achieve optimal health outcomes for every patient. Exploring health stewardship as a path to wellness will assist healthcare practitioners to guide patients living with a chronic disease to be as healthy as possible. Stewardship requires us to appreciate two great gifts that a wise and loving God has given: the earth, with all its natural resources, and our own human nature, with its biological, psychological, social, and spiritual capacities. This principle is grounded that God has absolute dominion over creation, and that insofar as human beings are made in God's image and likeness, we have been given a limited dominion over creation and are responsible for its care. The principle of stewardship includes but is not reducible to concern for scarce resources. Rather, it also implies a responsibility to see that the mission of healthcare is carried out with its particular commitment to human dignity and the common good. The potential for improving and enhancing policy outcomes is the predominant positive potential of stewardship. Another prospect of stewardship is to revive a sense of social purpose among public sectors of management, together with assisting to restore a sense of trust and legitimacy to the role of the state. This attractiveness of a stewardship approach may be a realistic possibility to channel fresh and emerging systems of integrated care in more socially responsible ways. Future nurse leaders or stewards will be directly centered on working with nurse practitioners and nurse educators to transform the practice environments in which they work. The intended outcome is to make practice environments more positive, healthy, and engaging. Areas for dialogue may be within patient population centeredness, safety for patients and healthcare personnel, the needs of an aging workforce, increased autonomy for advanced nurse practitioners, increased respect for the contributions made by professional nurses, clarification of the caring work of the nurse, and enhancement of the collaborative practice of the multidisciplinary healthcare team. To meet the domains of stewardship in healthcare and the nursing profession, it is crucial that the nurse leaders engage with development of self, succession planning to develop and nurture a new generation of transformational nurse leaders may be the only way to achieve this. To meet the concept of lifelong learning, nurse leaders or stewards will need to use of mentors and personal coaches to assist them in refining skills and improving competencies. Healthy nurse leader stewards will thus become visible and sound role models within their institutions to maintain the balance between self and professional fulfillment. The future of nursing is rapidly changing. Things are somewhat chaotic at times, but the opportunities for stewardship are many and varied. We are ideally suited to serve as nurse leaders or stewards in all aspects of healthcare. By embracing the six aims of healthcare improvement, the leadership of nursing can be both invigorating and transformational. So if you have concerns regarding to this presentation, please feel free to message me. Good day and be safe.